morning and welcome to the third annual OneEastside Economic Outlook Summit. My name is Christina Hudson and I am CEO of One Redmond and your host for today. We have a great program lined up for you this morning. We are going to hear from our economist, Chris Mefford, who will share East King County data and give us those clever insights to our outlook for the next year. Next, from the Puget Sound Business Journal, we'll have Emily Parkhurst moderate a fireside discussion with Microsoft, Facebook, Evergreen Health, and Molly Moon Homemade Ice Cream. And throughout the portion of the program, we'll be featuring stories from some of our most resilient small businesses who are an important part of our economic recovery and resiliency. But before we begin, I'd like to go ahead and thank our sponsors, Amazon, Puget Sound Energy, and our supporting sponsors, Business Health Trust, our partner in providing discounted health insurance and employee benefit programs for our members. We also have Clark Newber and our media sponsors, Puget Sound Business Journal. We are excited to be working with them on their Future of the East Side supplement coming out on July 31st. And you'll be hearing more about this in the near future. And thank you to our One Redmond founder investors, the City of Redmond, Microsoft, and Nelson Legacy Group. Thank you for all your support. This last year, One Redmond had the opportunity to work with over 5,000 businesses and help deliver resources during the crisis. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, One Redmond, with the support of our East Side partners, formed One East Side. We knew economic recovery takes a regional effort and requires collaboration, so we can collectively maximize resources and align priorities. And I want to take a moment to recognize all our 23 cities and towns in East King County. And I want to thank all the partners here on this screen, our East Side cities, our chambers, our downtown associations, our visitors bureaus, for all the work that they are doing in helping delivering services to our community. And now I would like to begin with a message from Executive Dow Constantine.
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today to kick off the One East Side Economic Outlook Summit. It's exciting to see our 23 East Side cities and towns working together to support our business community. This year has challenged our region unlike any other. The pandemic, an overdue awakening to racial injustice, and an economic upheaval. They've all tested us. But working together, government, community groups, and businesses large and small, we're developing innovative solutions and working for the health of our communities and moving forward together. King County is working hard to support our small businesses during this difficult time. Across King County, our partners have worked together in delivering much needed resources to our business owners, including PPE, grants, and so much more. I want to thank One Redmond for your leadership in developing the One East Side partnership to help support our economic recovery and resiliency for East King County. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish together in the years that follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dal. That was great. I'm Mary Rubel, Small Business Advisor for One Redmond and the Washington Small Business Development Center. Last year, our team worked with thousands of small businesses and advised owners on topics such as resiliency, funding, startup, and growth. Our office has been in East King County for years, and we will continue to be there to support our small businesses now and into the future. We are pleased to present stories of resilience that highlight many of the common challenges the Eastside small business and nonprofit community faced during the past year of the pandemic and their outlook and opportunities in the next year ahead.
The Ally League was founded by Keisha Rogers and Sarah So. The company's mission is to transform empathy to action in the fight against racism. In the fall of 2020, they launched Black Boxes, gift boxes curated with items from Black-owned businesses. They're also developing a membership program designed to teach people how to be anti-racist, with weekly content and monthly live learning opportunities. The Ally League was born during the pandemic. Their business challenges include funding, capacity, and awareness. Rogers and So encourage other small businesses to seek support. So says, The Washington Small Business Development Center has free services including classes and one-on-one counseling. We have also benefited from the Startup Incubator, Sharks at the Beach, sponsored by Urban Impact. Another great support system is the Minority Supplier Development Council. The outlook for the year ahead is bright for the Ally League. So reports, we just won 2 pitch contests focused on our membership program plans, and it's been a great confirmation of our unique approach to anti-racism training and support. Newport Tenney of Bellevue, Bowen, and Occupational Therapy Services provides outpatient occupational therapy services to adults and children. She uses light manual therapy interventions to alleviate pain and dysfunction to help people live fuller lives. The pandemic greatly impacted Tenney's practice. Her practice closed down completely during the first lockdown. When she was able to reopen, it was on a part-time basis. Extra time was needed in order to sanitize the room and equipment between each client. She was able to sustain her practice by remaining flexible. Although it required a lot more extra time, effort, and PPE, she took care to ensure patient safety was prioritized at every step of the way. Her efforts resulted in clients feeling comfortable coming in for therapy because they could see that safety measures were being taken to ensure patient safety. Tenney approaches the year ahead with hope and optimism, hopeful that COVID-19 will be mostly behind us and rates of infection in the community will be so low that we can resume most healthcare services with modest precautions. Discover Yoga is a Vini-Yoga studio that has served the Redmond community for 24 years. Owner Sarah George explains that Vini-Yoga is about adapting all of the postures and techniques to the individual student. Each class at our studio is different and reflects the needs of the students practicing in class that day. The pandemic greatly impacted Discover Yoga. George recalls that the studio closed their doors a week before the first state-mandated lockdown, thinking that it would be just a few weeks before the studio could reopen again. George says, realizing the pandemic was not going away, we began offering live stream classes. Their transition was often not easy, but our teachers and students were all open to trying new things. George also credits organizations, including One Redmond and Working Washington for essential support. She says that without the grants, PPE loans, and working with her amazing landlord, Nelson Properties, Discover Yoga would not have survived this pandemic. She's hopeful for the year ahead. I see a slight uptick already in attendance, and in addition to reopening in-person classes in a safer way, our live stream classes are definitely here to stay.
Posto Pizzeria is an open flame pizzeria and Italian kitchen. Founded in 2006 by Jeremy Hardy and Tia Oakford, Posto first opened in Seattle's Mount Baker neighborhood. Since then, Oakford and Hardy have successfully recreated the date night pizzeria atmosphere in 3 more locations, in Admiral, Ravenna, and on Mercer Island. Posto was hit hard by the pandemic. Sales dropped and the business was forced to pivot to be takeout focused, but they met the challenges. They relied heavily on new technology to streamline the influx of takeout orders. They added pizza kits, bake-at-home family meals, to-go cocktails, and a retail wine list. And they invested heavily in patios, outdoor heaters, chairs, tables, and PPE. And in the midst of so many challenges, they observed the amount of waste involved with takeout service, and they transitioned to using 100% compostable takeout packaging. The owners of Posto have a bullish outlook for 2021, and they would like to see local governments stand up to support small restaurants to transition from non-compostable to compostable takeout packaging.
Good morning. When I think of the East Side, I always think of warm communities with the beauty of mountains behind them and the water beside them. After COVID, I have to add on to that vision that the East Side has one heck of an ecosystem. You've all worked together in concert to save your small businesses and retain the charm that makes the East Side so special. I want to thank One Redmond for inviting SBA to be a part of your community through this journey that really none of us wanted to be on. But I am hopeful that in the future that we will retain this collaboration and this connection so that we can help and ensure that every business owner, whether aspiring or existing, has the opportunity to continue for the future and fulfill their dreams. Fortunately, through this consortium, we've been able to bring some businesses out of the shadows and into the light and highlight some really incredible businesses, such as have been featured on Mary's video. As we're starting to wind down PPP, we are starting to ramp up the restaurant revitalization program, which I know will have a big impact for a lot of businesses on the east side. Please know that with One Redmond and your colleagues covering your backs, I'm pretty sure that the 8 folks that I have in the SBA will be walking beside you into the future. And I hope at some point we'll be able to come in and all get together and be able to enjoy what you've accomplished. It truly is impressive, your resiliency and your success. So I want to thank you for being you. I want to thank you for being an ecosystem that honestly I'm so proud to participate with, and just for being an incredible person in your community. If I had grandchildren, I'd love for them to grow up in a community on the east side. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie. This is a perfect segue to some big news that we have. We are very excited to announce OneEastside SPARK, a regional recovery and resiliency center funded by a $500,000 grant from the Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration. This program will fortify our small businesses with the resources, expertise, and additional key areas of support that they need to thrive and to withstand future economic crises. SPARK is a collaboration and a partnership, and this additional funding will amplify and expand our advising services to our partners in the 23 cities and towns of East King County. Our grant application was supported by our congressional delegation and all the organizations listed here, and I want to thank you all again for your support. And now let's spotlight a few more of our resilient business owners.
Redmond's Gallagher Tool and Instrument is a small, family-owned business. The business designs and builds capital equipment used by other businesses in the manufacturing, aerospace, and life science industries. Gallagher Tool and Instrument faced challenges during the pandemic. Manager Dr. Ann Catron Gallagher recalls that the most significant repercussions from the COVID pandemic were that some of our customers went out of business, while others drastically cut back the development of efforts which we were supporting. We were able to generate revenue by taking on job shop work in our machine shop, which previously had been dedicated to supporting our capital equipment development efforts. We received support in the form of PPP funding and a Redmond Small Business Resiliency Grant, which helped us make payroll as we made the transition from project work to job shop work. Her outlook for the year ahead is optimistic. If we can increase headcount in a sustainable way to accommodate the resurgent interest in capital equipment development while maintaining support of our expanded customer base, then there's a good opportunity for us to grow our business. Kirkland Studio East has provided theater training and performances since 1992. They provide a range of programming including classes, camps, main stage productions, and storybook theater, a professional touring company. The pandemic greatly impacted Studio East. They were not able to generate their normal program supporting income through ticket sales from storybook theater and their main stage productions. In addition, most schools were completely virtual for the year, with no in-person enrichment programs offered. These challenges created a budget shortfall of several $100,000. Studio East has had to innovate to meet the challenges of providing education and theater in a pandemic. They pivoted to online classes within the first 2 weeks of the stay-at-home order. They created virtual summer camps to complement their limited in-person capacity camps. And they decided to present the Storybook Theater season as an innovative 3-show streaming project. Now their same quality productions can be experienced by patrons and students locally and around the world for free.
Naan and Curry is a favorite with locals in Renton, where it has been serving delicious Pakistani and Indian food since 2005. The pandemic was devastating to the family-run restaurant. Owner Majid Janjua observes that 85% of our business was dine-in and 15% takeout with no delivery service in place. Our business dropped by 80%. But his employees helped him pivot quickly to provide takeout and delivery services. and he credits the support of state-mandated commission limits for third-party delivery services, grants from the city, state, private companies, an SBA loan, and a PPP loan for helping keep his family's restaurant open. And he continues to bet on his current employees and to invest in them. Our best investment we are making is giving them extra hours and increases in pay and getting our employees cross-trained and letting them know how proud we are of them to take initiative and learn something new. Cooks and dishwashers are being trained as runners and bussers. So far, we have succeeded in doing so.
Snoqualmie's D&W Martial Arts was founded in 2005 and offers a variety of martial arts classes, character development, and leadership programs for students ranging from age 4 to adult. Like many small businesses, D&W Martial Arts was hit hard with the pandemic. Owner Karen Bowers recalls, "We were forced to flip our thriving studio serving 280 students to a virtual program in one day." Bowers says that the resilience of her business relied on flexibility and support, including PPE donations of masks and hand sanitizer. Once we were allowed to reopen, parents were understandably very nervous about sending their students back to class. The stacks of masks and hand sanitizer helped us demonstrate our commitment to safety. She has a positive outlook for the year ahead while still conscious of the many challenges that remain. Returning to the mat required us to now operate both in-person and virtual programs simultaneously, and we did it well. Our entire team is willing to make both financial and operational sacrifices to keep our standard of service high for our students and their families. Redmond-based HopeLink annually serves over 65,000 people in King and Snohomish counties. The nonprofit's 9 programs help people meet basic needs for food, shelter, heat, and transportation. In addition, HopeLink provides adult education and financial capabilities classes, assistance finding jobs, and family development support in the form of comprehensive case management. In response to the pandemic, calls to HopeLink requesting financial assistance increased dramatically from previous years. By the end of 2020, HopeLink's financial assistance program had distributed nearly $1.5 million in rental assistance, nearly $1 million more than in 2019. HopeLink demonstrated resilience during a time of intense demand for services. Todd Langston, HopeLink's Director of Communications, credits that resiliency to an exceptional, generous community, volunteers, donors, and staff. Over the next year, HopeLink will be focused on meeting the basic needs of families and individuals with food assistance, heating assistance, and flexible financial assistance designed to keep people housed and safe.
Oh my gosh, I love all these stories of our East Side small business resiliency and our nonprofits too. And this is exactly why we put together OneEastside SPARK. It's designed to provide responsive programming to address key areas of need amongst the small businesses and nonprofits in King County. And as the needs change, so will the programming. We've launched a new Spark page that will serve as the umbrella for our virtual recovery and resiliency efforts. Our well-known Eastside Recovery Hub webinar series will evolve and be amplified to include additional programming on resiliency. We have a webinar next week focused on the employee retention credit with representatives from Clark Newber and the IRS. We are also working with Startup 425 and Bellevue College on a Boost Your Business Tools and Resources for Going Digital series, and that is going to be starting on Saturday, August 7th. East King County small businesses will also have access to free of charge one-on-one advising in the areas of taxes, finances, legal, marketing, and more. And if an East King County company or nonprofit need to speak with a CPA on topics like the employee retention credit, we are sponsoring up to 2 hours with a Clark Newber advisor. We're also offering free one-on-one marketing advising consultations, and you can find both opportunities on our website. Our virtual portal contains information on funding opportunities, a regional calendar, and more. And over time, we'll be adding educational toolkits and videos. We are connecting on a regular basis to hear from our local businesses, cities, chambers, and organizations to ensure that we leave no stone unturned in discovering the needs of our community. Our Eastside small businesses and nonprofits have told us that they would benefit from a forum where they could connect with their peers and to share resources, ask questions, and discuss current challenges and opportunities. So we've set up a private Facebook group to provide that support. And of course, collaboration is a big part of our recovery, and it's a big part of this grant. This opportunity allows East King County to work with other regional groups in our state who are developing small business support programs. Through the Washington State Department of Commerce, we were introduced to Restart Partners, a local nonprofit that's committed to saving lives and livelihoods during the COVID-19 pandemic through science, data, and policy that empowers communities. Now, to showcase some of the great work in progress, please welcome Dr. Sandra Archibald, founding board member and senior research fellow at Restart Partners. She is professor and dean emerita of the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance at the University of Washington. We have Ed Ehrenberg, CEO and co-founder of Charity, and Alex Stonehill, head of creative strategy with the University of Washington Communication Leadership Master's Program. And now I'll turn it over to Sandra.
Thank you very much for the introduction. We're so pleased to be here this morning to be able to share our work with you. We are just a group of citizens from the private sector, government, and the academy who came together to try to help our state navigate this pandemic, which we never expected to be quite so long. We initially worked on helping secure PPE, including 1 million masks for children in the state of Washington. We presently want to talk today about our work with the Department of Commerce, the Department of Health, and Labor and Industry in the state of Washington, where we're focused on helping small businesses remain resilient, reopen, change, and navigate the pandemic. You're going to hear about this work today. In a few weeks, we're going to be excited to unveil our access Smart WA AI machine learning based dashboard, which is a decision support system that will help our small businesses integrate the myriad sources of data they have on economic, community health, and public health. And so we're very excited to be here this morning, and I'm pleased to turn the program over to Ed Ehrenberg.
Good morning. Excited to walk through a few slides with all of you that will show you the work that Restart Partners is doing in conjunction with their partners like OneEastside and the OneEastside SPARK campaign to bring a digital message to participants supporting small business return and changing consumer behaviors so that they can support the efforts we all need to get back to a semblance of normality. And this campaign is a way for individuals to share their support by attaching their photo to a frame across social networks and share that content, supporting a positive peer pressure sort of effect that will allow people to not just see that message, but click into it and join and share it to wherever they think is the right place for them. And you can actually walk through this yourself as I'm talking about it. If you go on your mobile device to share.restart.us, you can try the campaign out for yourselves. And in the meantime, I'm just going to show you the way it works. So this is something that can be adapted to any social network, any participant, an individual photo with some data that are the key terms that we want to show to inspire confidence and have that message come not from brands, but from individuals, where that message can be so effective. And so this will be promoted in a number of ways initially, not just through social advertising on platforms like Facebook, but also through individuals and partners like OneEastside SPARK's campaign that's going to enable the message to grow from many different participants in all simultaneously. And you can see here what it looks like when you might advertise this, and also what it looks like when someone's already joined the campaign and creates a post. And the way it works is once someone clicks on either of those entry points, and again, you can check this out at share.restart.us, they'll be presented with a compliant message letting people know that this will be a safe experience for them to show their support. They'll immediately be in the campaign, and you can see the restart version of this. There's also a OneEastside SPARK version that I'll show you in a couple of seconds. This is not an app that you have to download. It's just a very seamless process in the mobile browser or in the in-app browser of the social network you're already on, where you can add your photo and support. And what you can do is choose something off your camera roll, or you could take a selfie on the spot. You can choose from a few different messages, all of which are in support of getting back to good practices for supporting small businesses. Things like I got my shot, I got vaxxed and I'm still masked. So you can make those choices with your photo and then immediately have the option to share that to a number of popular social networks. And this will work anywhere. You could also copy the link and share it somewhere else if one of these choices isn't the way that you want to authentically share this to your network. And then finally, there's a way for the organizations and partner organizations to grab some information willingly from individuals so that they can continue to reach out and provide more information as the campaign progresses. And then the end of this is the positive peer pressure part. This is where a message can be amplified and spread from friend to friend across social networks and can be joined as well. And so from a social network like Facebook, you'd only have to click on that and you could enter the campaign and share your photo as well. On something like Instagram, we give you a way to text your photo in so that you can join. In most cases, you're able to just click right in and join. And we're going to show you all how this message spreads across the state of Washington, not just geographically, but with a photo gallery of all the participants and other detailed analytics that is going to really provide a way to quantify participation and the way the message is spreading. And so, as I mentioned, there's also a version of this that supports there's a consumer version of this campaign. There is obviously a small business focused version of this campaign. It's running in multiple languages, being promoted on various social networks and also through partners. And if anyone wants to additionally partner on this, the entire experience can be branded. So you should get in touch if that's something you're interested in. And then right at the end here, I just want to say you could have joined this during the campaign description I made by going to share.restart.us, but you can also join simply by texting restart to 41785, and we'll send you a link so that you can join the campaign on your own and share your photo to your friends and promote the healthy messaging that's going to get all of us back to normal faster. Oh, and so I'm going to now turn this over to Alexander Stonehill. He's going to talk to you about some more of the work that Restart Partners is doing right now. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Ed. So yeah, in addition to the powerful peer-to-peer campaign that Ed just described, that's just kicking off, for the last year, over the course of the pandemic, Restart has been running a number of one-to-many campaigns in partnership with Facebook and the University of Washington's Communication Leadership Graduate Program, which is where I work. So I've been working with my students and Restart and with Facebook public health partnerships to basically deploy public health messaging that encourages COVID safe behaviors, everything from mask adoption, that's kind of where we started, to vaccination and especially COVID safe economic activity. And that's been empowered by over $150,000 in ad credits from our partners at Facebook, which obviously expands the reach quite a bit. So we've been able to reach over a third of the state of Washington with over 21 million ad impressions. And you're just seeing some creative from the mask campaign up top here, and then here's some creative from the Safe Start small business campaign. We're encouraging people to get back out there and support small businesses like yours, but also doing so in a COVID safe way. So we've run these 4 campaigns throughout Washington, And there's a quick summary there, but where we also ran a nationwide campaign related to the mask adoption messaging, and have been able to use some pretty unique survey tools that Facebook has provided to really measure that impact. So we've been able to estimate that the mask campaign alone in Washington influenced over 55,000 people to change their behavior, which is fantastic because we know that when people are seeing this messaging and they're changing their behavior, we're saving lives as well, and hopefully saving small businesses too. So these campaigns really show, I think, the impact of putting a lot of messaging in front of people using the tools that we have, and then especially going beyond just informational messaging or sort of public shaming messaging about what you should and shouldn't do, tapping on other things like social influence and community solidarity with small business owners, things like that. So we have a quick opportunity to share with you related to that, which is we're partnered with an organization called Amplifier. That's a Seattle-based nonprofit design lab started by photojournalist Aaron Huey. You might have seen some of the style of art or the specific art. So basically, this pro-vaccine art is intended to shift the culture of apprehension and increase vaccine adoption. And Facebook is offering, in partnership with Restart, to basically boost any content that organizations share from this campaign. So it's as simple as, here's an example post. Basically, you can go to amplifier.org. You'll be very easy to see the vaccinated campaign there. You can download that art. If you're managing a Facebook or Instagram page for your organization, you can just post it to your page. And then there's a quick form there with a bit link, bit.ly/OneEastside OneEastside amplification is what I was thinking with OneEastside. And you can just fill out a quick form there, send us your post ID, and then what will happen is Facebook will actually boost that post so that it will get seen by many more people than it would organically. And obviously the primary benefit there is to get more people vaccinated so that we can get back to business. And of course, the side benefit is some exposure for your page as well, because suddenly your organization or business's page will be seen by a lot of people. So with that, I'm gonna pass it off to Sandy to take us home for the Restart team.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. We look forward to partnering more with all of you, and there's some opportunity for you to connect with us on our last slide, and we really do thank you for the opportunity. I'm an East Sider myself, so I really am committed to this effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great work. And now I welcome our next speaker from one of our newest Eastside companies. Please welcome John Shuttler, Amazon's Vice President of Global Real Estate. John?
Good morning, One Redmond. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. As a company with deep roots and a large presence in the Puget Sound region, Amazon is very excited about the investments that we're making on the East Side, and we look forward to continuing to work with East Side city leaders to foster a thriving economy and an inclusive community. Amazon was born in Jeff Bezos' garage on the East Side, and it's exciting to help write the next chapter of Amazon's presence in the region. Before I introduce today's speaker, I wanted to quickly update you on our East Side plans. We're very excited to bring 25,000 jobs to downtown Bellevue over the next few years. Bellevue is a growing business-friendly city with great amenities, a high quality of life, and a fantastic talent pool. Our vision for Bellevue is one that promotes accessibility, innovation, sustainable lifestyle, and supports the creation of a thriving 18-hour district. In Redmond, we announced that we will be opening an R&D headquarters for Project Kuiper. Project Kuiper is an initiative to launch a constellation of low Earth orbit satellites that will provide low latency, high-speed broadband connectivity to both unserved and underserved communities around the world. Since its inception, Project Kuiper has made significant progress towards our goal to serve tens of millions of people who lack basic access to broadband internet. In addition to Project Kuiper, we're opening offices in Redmond to support our AWS tech and engineering teams, tapping into Redmond's fantastic talent pool. We believe the East Side offers tremendous assets that are fundamental to staying competitive in the long term. We know that there will be hard work ahead for all of us as we recover from the economic impacts stemming from the pandemic over the past year. At Amazon, we believe that the road to recovery will require us all to work together. Since the start of the pandemic, we took action to offer relief where we could and provided more than $15 million to more than 900 local small businesses in the Puget Sound region through our Neighborhood Small Business Relief Fund and rent relief. We also recognize the breadth of Eastside organizations serving vulnerable populations, so we made a $1 million grant to the City of Bellevue's Human Services Fund to support communities that are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. The city will distribute these funds to more than 40 entities across the East Side. We also recognize that some of the challenges our region faces predated the pandemic and continue to persist, like the lack of affordable housing. We know that increasing the supply of affordable housing is the best way to address this crisis, which is what led us to create Amazon's Housing Equity Fund. This $2 billion commitment will preserve existing housing and create new inclusive housing through below market loans and grants to partners in our headquarter communities in the Puget Sound, Arlington, Virginia, and Nashville, Tennessee. Our first commitment from the Housing Equity Fund was for $186 million in loans and grants to King County Housing Authority, which will help preserve affordability for 1,000 apartments here in King County. We're proud to be working with so many tremendous partners who share in this mission of tackling the challenge of affordable housing. Time and time again, I am inspired by our region's resilience, and I know that if we continue to work together, we will come back stronger than before. Less than a year ago, One Redmond asked if our treasure trucks could play a role in the delivery of over 2 million masks and tens of thousands of hand sanitizers across King County. Working with Amazon, volunteers, the treasure truck team, and the regional chambers, this effort led to over 4,000 PPE kits distributed to small businesses and nonprofits throughout King County. It's with this spirit that I am pleased to announce today that Amazon will make a $100,000 contribution to the Eastside Small Business Recovery Fund to help offset the cost of PPE for small businesses and nonprofit organizations in our region as they begin to safely reopen. We would like to thank One Redmond for your leadership in establishing the Eastside Small Business Recovery Fund and for this opportunity to support our neighbors and community. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce your next speaker, Chris Mefford, President and CEO of Community Attributes. Chris will share valuable insights with us into the economic trends shaping the recovery of East King County and its 23 cities and towns. I look forward to continuing to partner with you all and to build a brighter future in the East Side. Thank you.
And now we go to Chris Mefford, Community Attributes.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, John Shetler. It's great to see you, my friend. What great leadership and what a great community partner from Amazon. That's the theme of a lot of the content that I'm going to be talking about here this morning is the role of leading employers throughout the East Side and throughout the Central Puget Sound region. Okay, thanks for having me back. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Chris Mefford. I lead a company called Community Attributes in downtown Seattle. We do urban planning and economic development. I've done a lot of work with Christina over the years. Really grateful for your leadership, Christina, as evidenced with your EDA grant and as evidenced with this great program, and just the leadership that you're fostering with the speakers on this call today. So very excited to be a part of that. Thanks again for having me back. I'm going to talk this morning a little bit about the status of the virus in economic terms. We're going to get into some national economic indicators, regional economic indicators, and then we're going to focus on the East Side to understand where things are up and down the East Side and what an economic outlook might look like as well. Well, friends on this call, you are in my mind, and you will forever be in my mind as the last public audience that I spoke to in person prior to the pandemic. I spoke with you in mid to late February last year, and just at that moment we were beginning to understand that a pandemic was heading our way. I have to be honest with you, and this might be oversharing too early in my presentation. I'm not sure I knew the definition of a pandemic at that time. I knew what an epidemic was, but that term pandemic didn't rank as high to me when I spoke to you more than a year ago as it does right now, of course. And it'll be forever seared in my mind where I spoke to you and talked about an economic outlook. And I said, hey, this virus thing might set the economy back a year or two. And it felt like a verbal slip. And I looked out of the audience, I saw a few people sort of shuffling, but what will also be in my mind is I saw a couple of people, if you keep in mind, we were at Microsoft's event center where they hosted us a year ago, and really grateful for their leadership in the community as well. And I saw a couple of people out there who I read into that in hindsight of having better information than we did with their global connectivity and their awareness of what was going on around the world with that virus. And I felt like there was a mix of some folks having a knowing nod and raising an eyebrow saying, no, this thing's going to be really bad. So that was our presentation a year ago. Here we are now, a little bit of wishful thinking with that red line as a general indicator of the virus metrics. It's roughly modeled after the state of Washington experience. But the key theme of this is how tied economic productivity, of course, is to the virus metrics. I've been updating this slide on a regular basis over the past years, you might imagine, and that July question mark date as to when we might round a corner to be more open as an economy. We pushed it out, we moved it forward over time as we've tried to get smarter about how the virus is affecting the economy. There's still a lot of volatility, and we're going to talk about that a lot this morning when we get into the data. A lot of volatility that is burdened by the virus on a global scale, on a local scale. So we're not out of the woods yet in terms of the virus having a stronghold on the economy, but gosh, we're close. We can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that right now. Because what does control over the virus look like? I think folks are starting to say, you know what, this concept of herd immunity might not be as much within our reach as we wish it were. We've been hoping with the vaccines, we've been hoping with the global scale that we could reach a herd immunity and not have to worry about the virus. But a lot of experts are now saying, you know what, we may have to live with this. So what does living with it look like? I put on the slide here where we've been with COVID-19 and the deaths and the hospitalizations across the US to date, next to what a typical flu season is. And this is influenza prior to the pandemic. And you can see, of course, what the dramatic scale of impact and death from COVID-19 looks like by comparison to the flu. So for the folks out there who say, we live with the flu, why can't we just live with COVID? This is a dark and visceral set of data on this slide, but we do hope that we can get to those numbers on the right so that we can start to say, okay, it's an understandable risk as a society to deal with COVID-19 in the same way that we deal with influenza. I offer this up simply as context back to say public health is an imperative in that critical path towards vibrancy of an economy. And until we get COVID-19 under some modicum of control like we do with influenza, it will continue to burden our economy, and we won't get that green line I showed in the earlier slide back up to where we've been. What's it look like in terms of numbers? Well, if your Twitter feed is filled with economists like mine is, then you are seeing a lot of chatter about these numbers on the slide here. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics announced this morning their latest estimate of jobs data for the United States. It came in dramatically lower than what people were expecting. There were indicators to think that there might be as many as 1 million new jobs reported. And in fact, they came out this morning and said there's only 266,000 new jobs added in April. just came out this morning. You're going to see a lot of news. The headlines on all the business journals are already trying to unpack and understand why it is. My hypothesis on this number, why it came in lower than expected, is there's a lot of slack in our economy, a lot of slack in these numbers, a lot of underemployment, especially in that service sector. You only have to have a little bit of a job to be counted as having a job. And as restaurants and service providers and those consumer-facing industries start to try to ramp up, there's still slack in the capacity of their payroll, in my hypothesis. And I think that'll continue to beleaguer our recovery. This is looking backward and forward a little bit. By forward, it's a projection of gross domestic product, one of the important indicators, of course, about the nationwide economy. It's not perfect. We're going to understand a little bit why. You can see the volatility that we've been through in a quarter by quarter last year. This is a metric, as I like to say, that that we trade in tenths of percentages. So to show that decline of a negative 3.5% in 2020 is a very drastic decline. That 6.4% bounce back, if you will, for 2021, that's a source from the International Monetary Fund. The consensus out there is in that range where folks think you'll have a 6% growth in GDP in 2021. That's an enormous number as well. It's not a sustainable number. It's a rebound number, if you will. On a quarterly basis, you can see where we've been over the past year and into 2021. Part of the reason we're doing okay on GDP and rebounding, of course, is the federal stimulus money. And I'm going to spend a little bit more minutes on that here this morning because it's such a hot topic and such an important topic. We've committed more than $5 trillion as a country to our recovery to date. And President Biden's administration has on the table several trillion more in the forms of a jobs plan or infrastructure plan, if you will, and the American Families Plan as well. Those are responses that are attempting to learn from challenges of the 2008 recession, where the consensus among many economists is that, hey, we pulled back support too soon and our recovery was too slow because we didn't give it that final push over the hump. So if you're a Keynesian economist, John Maynard Keynes, his theory was this is the role of federal government, is to pour money into the economy. We know it's inefficient as all get out, but as long as that money goes out and gets spent, then there will be good economic impacts that come from that. And it'll help rev up an engine that can sustain itself further. And that's where that thinking is coming from, of course. Now, it does come with a cost. This slide shows you what the deficits and surplus have been over the years. This is a slide I've been updating and presenting to economic talks over the years. And we used to look back at 2008 and we'd say to ourselves, oh my gosh, how could it have ever gotten that bad that we were in the $1.7 trillion of a deficit on an annual basis back then. And we climbed our way out up until about 2016 when we started increasing the deficit again. Of course, we never dreamt in a million years at that time that we'd have such an economic shock that would require this sort of an intervention at this scale to make those past deficit numbers look rather tolerable. I wanted to give a little more data on this to be able to put this in context so people can understand where are we with this infusion. Now, these numbers on the screen for the COVID-19 response are the actuals for 2020, and it does not factor in new numbers for 2021, of course. And you can see the total deficit, all calibrated for inflation in 2020, far exceeds what we ever experienced with the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, and even way greater than it was just after World War II as we paid off the war debt. Important context, though, in the middle of your chart there is understanding that our economy is much, much larger than it was back then as well. So that percentage of gross domestic product, and if you will, that indicates our ability to recover from a deficit, was a much higher percentage at the end of World War II than it is now. COVID-19 requires a much greater response, of course, than we had for the Great Recession. One more way to look at it is on a per capita metric, however, and on the far right of your screen, you can see that on a per capita basis here, these numbers translate not in our favor for the COVID-19 response. And on a per person basis, just for that deficit alone for 2020, it's an enormous debt load that we are adding to our nationwide economy. Well, government spending, like I said, is a part of gross domestic product, and it does pop it up. However, it doesn't explain exactly where all those trillions of dollars are going. The components of gross domestic product include government spending, the gray part in the middle, but that's just the direct spending. That does not include the transfer payments, all the PPP loans, the IDLs, the unemployment, that flows through the economies in other ways that I'll show you in a minute that translate into those personal consumption expenditures and the business-to-business spending and the all other components. Let me show you just a little bit of what that's like, and then we'll back out of the macro theory and start to get more applied into the local and regional theory. This is a chart that's near and dear to any economist's heart. It is called the circular flows of the economy. And this shows roughly how the economy works on an annual basis. It shows spending scaled accordingly between households and businesses. And what's important is to understand that when government is involved and when there's savings involved, we call those leakages, right? Those are things that are coming out of the economy, and they actually don't benefit the economy in the moment as much as we wish we would. Transfer payment from the government in the form of unemployment checks, in the form of all the support that we've been giving, not including the direct purchases, are considered a leakage. Taxes come out of households, and that's considered a leakage of their contribution to the economy. Undistributed corporate profits, or business savings, if you will, is another part of it, and then imports is part of it. Those are leakages that are very, very important. To get back on track, our growth has to happen through that gold section shown, or the only two ways to scale up an economy is through trade or to import capital. It's important context from a theoretical perspective as we get into interpreting some of the data. The business savings is at all-time high. Personal savings is an all-time high. I guess I edited out those slides for time's sake here this morning. But if you've seen my talks before, you'll see that savings have been going down an awful lot, and then only through the pandemic and the payouts of 2020 have we seen savings rate spikes. And on the business side, that's especially true. Undistributed corporate profits are at an all-time high, or at a recent high anyway. And that's pent up demand, if you will, that will help push up that 6% gross domestic product in 2021. These are volatile times, and this is not the standard. That'll play itself out, and we get back to a more normal 2% growth target in 2022. People worry about inflation as part of that. We would expect inflation to happen more in 2021 as consumer spending increases, that people are paying out those savings that they've compiled in 2020, and more people are getting back to work. That should be temporary as well. Regionally, now this doesn't reflect the current news that was just released this morning. The US unemployment rate bumped up a little bit to 6.1 or 6.2%, I believe. We won't get state and local unemployment data for April for another couple of weeks, but you can see how we're coming back down into a more normal unemployment rate. As I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot that is not told with these metrics and these numbers, in particular the slack of the economy and the underemployment that I believe is pervasive. An equitable recovery is critical, as Executive Constantine reminded us in our opening remarks, of an overdue escalating of awareness of some of the inequities in our economy. You can see it rather viscerally in this slide to look at unemployment rates by race and wages earned by race. This is of great importance to the East Side. I don't think people appreciate how diverse the East Side is. And in fact, there are, as a percentage basis, there are more people of color living in each of the communities of Bellevue, Redmond, and Renton than there are in the city of Seattle. That might surprise some folks. So inequities and racial justice is critical to the East Side economy, and critical that all folks feel included in economic prosperity and opportunity in order for the East Side economy to thrive. Here's our own region, trying to march our way back to where we were for employment prior to the pandemic. I'm gonna put this in context for you in just a moment as well. We lost the jobs severely in April, and what was distinctive about this recession, much differently than past recession, was that abrupt hit that we experienced a year ago right now. And unfortunately, it takes longer, and it's more difficult to rev up an economy to recover from that sort of a shock. It's easier to shut things down, and it's more difficult to start things up. We had a nice rebound last June and July as we recovered from the shock of the virus, and we started to learn through the use of PPE and some other things about how to deal with it. But now, after we've gotten it out of the chutes to open things up a little bit, you see the sputtering effect of the economy. And as the virus itself, back to my earlier line graph, spikes and reduces, and as we've learned to cope with it, the economy dials up and dials down. It's not as straightforward of a recovery as we wish it were. And unfortunately, I think it's going to take a little bit longer to get back to that full employment as a metric than a lot of people would like to see the case. Here's how this compares to past recessions. The gray line is for the global financial crisis, the Great Recession, and the blue line was the dot-com crash related to, and then coinciding with 9/11 back in 2001. And in each of those cases, it took us more than 5 years to get back to full employment. You'll hear comments from economists and in the media about us recovering from the recession sooner than this. The definition of a recession is tied to gross domestic product, and all we need is a couple of quarters of growth for the GDP for economists to declare that that recession is over. But again, some of these metrics don't really tell the full story, and jobs as a storyline take much longer to recover. And if we want to think about jobs as a key part of what recovering looks like, it's going to take us longer than we wish were the case, and we're probably a couple of years away at least from jobs in our region getting back to where they were pre-pandemic. On industry by industry basis, you can see how that's playing out. Some industries are doing just fine, of course. There's been recovery. The gray bars are for March of 2020. The red bars are where we are at the moment, trying to climb our way back. We're going to talk about aerospace in just a minute here, certainly of critical importance to the east side with the Boeing jobs concentrated in Renton as they are. Some industries, of course, have been a part of the recovery. Those construction jobs are higher than they were 1 year ago. These are mixed bags in terms of the stories in different industries, how they're recovering. Software publishers down at the bottom, there's a little bit outdated term, but it's where a lot of our information companies and technology companies' jobs are concentrated. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Our technology companies, as Mr. Shetler spoke to as part of the introduction here, are part of the solution. They're part of the heroic stories between Microsoft and Teams and Google and their online platforms and Amazon. I mean, they are the success stories of 2020 that kept us from falling as hard as we would have. I mean, can you imagine the pandemic in the mid-1970s? Our inability to have worked from home would have been much more catastrophic economically than what we've been through in the past year because of the technology leadership that we've had across industry. Again, just to round out the economy to understand where we are at different components and are working our way back to where we were at the pre-levels of the pandemic. We're months away, if not a couple of years, in some sectors of getting back toward that level. Other key indicators, though, for getting back to regional full productivity, working our way back, business travel, hospitality, it's a huge part of things. These data just speak to airplane traffic down at SeaTac, and that's really helpful. You can see in the blue bars how airplane traffic is increasing. These are the number of passengers that are flying in and out of SeaTac on a monthly basis. The green line speaks to international travel. We'd like that to go up along with those employments, but you understand, of course, now with the virus and the economy, how geography matters, right? You really can't talk about economics without talking about geography. And as the virus spikes in other parts of the world and it shuts down those trade ties with other parts of the world, it'll continue to hold back our economic growth. If you think back to that circular flows chart that I showed you and understanding the role of exports. Visit Seattle is one of the best data reporting entities on an industry association basis, and they release great data on a monthly basis to see how we're doing to work our way back. Hospitality and hotels are one of the hardest hit sectors of the industry, tied to air travel as well. Convention center bookings, a huge economic impact on our region. The uncertainty still looms high for convention centers. Some bookings are still being canceled for 2022. In fact, large scale events just need that much time to plan ahead, and they need that public health confidence in order to move forward. I mentioned Boeing earlier, 57,000 employees working in Washington state. Washington is the largest home of employment for the Boeing company. 3,600 jets back ordered to build in this region. By historic standards, that's a pretty good number. New sales coming in for the 737 MAX. Of course, the Boeing company working through its challenges with the 737 MAX. Timing couldn't have been worse related to the pandemic and how COVID hit the travel industry. There are other jets built up in Snohomish County, but the 737 MAX concentrated in Renton. We're really glad to see some good news coming out of Boeing with new orders and a return to travel for the 737 MAX airplane. Okay, we're going to focus in on the east side here just a little bit. I'm going to try to pick up the pace to keep this event on schedule. When we speak to the east side with the data I'm going to walk through here in a moment, these are the communities that we're talking about. Spans roughly from Maple Valley and Covington up to Bothell and out eastward all the way to Skycomish, though most of the urban growth area has jobs concentrated in the Issaquah and Sammamish on westward area. Initial unemployment claims throughout the east side to the pandemic model what we'd expect through the rest of the region. Big spikes last spring, and it's been sputtering down on a lower level, almost back to where the initial unemployments were prior to the pandemic. You can see where these have been concentrated in the region, and we expand the map a little bit more broadly just for context. On a per capita basis, many communities on the east side have fared better than elsewhere in the region. It really speaks to some of the regional inequities, of course, that are visceral on this slide. A lot of the information sector, a lot of those professional services jobs that people were able to work from home with are heavily concentrated on the east side, and that talent pool concentrated on the east side allowed the east side to avoid some of the unemployment hits that the rest of the region felt in different places. We did a lot of small business surveys during the COVID crisis. I'm so gratified by John Shetler's comments earlier and the role that Amazon has played to support small businesses. I say all the time when we talk about small businesses, you know what small businesses need more than anything? It's big businesses. In the story of downtown Seattle, with the challenges getting downtown Seattle back up and running, we are so dependent on that workforce at Amazon and the other major employers moving back into their offices in time. It's a key part of the economy. These surveys show how small businesses have been affected over time. We did 2 rounds focused on small business surveys in May and December. We did an earlier round in March that didn't quite have the same questions, but you could see how this progressed over time of folks that if they were worried about going out of business in March, that was the worst of it. And if they made it through the first half of the year into the third quarter of 2020, then they were probably going to be okay. Small businesses are easy to start up and easy to shut down, and that's good and bad, right? So as a result, many small businesses that shut down will not have the capital reserves to start back up, but there will be, as a segment, great interest, of course, in small businesses as well. It might be turnover, it might be different small businesses, and that's difficult to watch, but as a segment, it will come back. This map shows region-wide where jobs are concentrated throughout the region, pre-pandemic of 2019. And you can see relatively how jobs are concentrated on the east side compared to the employment center in Seattle. It's useful context as we get into the total number of jobs. To be clear, the east side is tremendously well positioned for continued job growth. The city of Seattle is not doing itself any favors right now with business climate concerns. The capacity and the ability for east side communities to partner with leading employers, the way that John was talking about their community partnerships and their collaboration with the city of Bellevue and their expansion in Bellevue, that needs to be modeled across all cities in the east side to accommodate growth. It has been a big challenge in Seattle where the political leadership has not shown that same support and collaboration for private sector in Seattle. As a result, you are seeing and you will see more interest in east side locations than in downtown Seattle for a little while. Those sorts of policies and challenges that Seattle are doing take a long time to undo. And the business reputation on a global scale doesn't look favorably back for the city of Seattle. This is where One Eastside is so important. This is where Eastside cities are so important to step up and to help offset some of those challenges that we're having on a reputational basis across the country right now. And all the leading employers, of course, are responding, and the growth you're seeing in the key cities, the key employment centers across the East Side is evidence of that. The challenge with all that growth, of course, is can cities scale? Jobs and housing units is a really important metric to understand on a city-by-city basis, how each city is accommodating that growth. The cities that have a jobs housing ratio greater than 1.4 mean you're more of a job center and you're importing talent. As you import talent, continue to grow, how those cities respond with housing. Again, grateful to Amazon's leadership and the affordable housing commitment that they've made. Microsoft with their tremendous support as well. That private sector leadership and engagement is critical for communities to accommodate the growth that comes with those opportunities. I'm going to skip through a couple of these slides just to get us back on track timing wise. We've talked about some of the disparities, and these next three slides just show where households by income are concentrated relatively 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 across these three slides, not entirely, but you have concentration of incomes in different parts of the community that vary, parts of the region. And we need to be able to have a diversity of housing. It's about workforce, access to jobs, and equity comes with that as well. Housing prices on the East Side certainly run higher than the MSA as a whole. This uses the data from Zillow. It's called the Zillow Home Value Index, and it's not quite a median. It's more of a composite of recent sales data, and the way Zillow characterizes it is the more typical home sales, what the prices that they're doing. There's a housing crisis across the country right now, right? So few houses that are on the market for sale because of COVID, and that is driving up housing costs. We need to build our way out of that by adding more housing in cities through more density, more infill, the ADUs, all those things need to be part of the solution. You can see how East Side jobs stack up across the region as a whole, and your contribution heavily concentrated in the professional services, of course, but it's a diverse economy on the East Side, mirrors the diversity of the economy as a whole. Okay, just a few more jobs and focus on tech jobs happening in the region because there's such a tremendous growth opportunity underway on the East Side. I just did the typical sort of logo map of where our tech companies are up and down the East Side. This is not comprehensive, of course, and we need to appreciate all small to medium-sized tech companies that come with that. But it's amazing what's happening on the East Side. And these are global brands that are driving our economy and changing our world on a regular basis. That talent migration from Silicon Valley wants to be a part of the Puget Sound region. They want the different culture that comes with doing work in this region, a little less transient workforce as it is down in the Silicon Valley. And that growth of these, again, world-changing companies up and down the East Side is an amazing moment that will carry on in the future years. Important to appreciate Boeing as part of that high-tech community. We do a lot of work in workforce, and some of the most in-demand jobs in aerospace are the same tech jobs that all tech companies are competing for talent with. So finally, how's this roll out for economic forecasts? We do see the East Side continuing to gain a greater share of employment than the region in the near term and over the next few years. Again, the key is going to continue to be those partnerships with the communities of how you can partner and scale up. This is how we approach that at Community Attributes. We take a very holistic view of economic development. We believe in order to be a good place to work, you've got to be a good place to live first and foremost. And then cities have to work with those companies that are sharing interest in their communities. With that in mind, you can go after what you want to be more strategic to round things out. That's it. That's my presentation this morning. I really appreciate having me back. I will follow up with Christina and her great team with a data deck. We have many more data tables put together for the breadth of all the East Side communities, and we're glad to be a part of this.
Thank you. Fabulous information as always, and it's always a pleasure to have you at our economic forecasts. A big thank you to Amazon for your generous contribution to our Eastside Small Business Recovery Fund. Wow, I think that's going to make a lot of difference to our small businesses here on the East Side. So next, I welcome Renee Zimmerman, Local Government and Community Engagement Manager from Puget Sound Energy.
Thank you so much, Christina, and good morning, everyone, and welcome. What a pleasure it is to be here. Each and every one of you are my customers, and I just want to share with you that if you know of anyone who's having some difficulties paying their energy bill, we have a program called the Crisis Affected Customer Assistance Program, where we are allocating over $20 million to help customers in the communities whom we serve by providing relief with their energy bills. So I'll put the link in the chat box, and I might need some help from Margot, and to ask you to share with anyone who may need that help. So our program today continues with the One Eastside Economic Outlook Fireside Chat. You're not going to want to miss this. Our panel is as follows. Jane Broom, Senior Director of Microsoft Philanthropies. Diane Dukas, U.S. Policy Programs Manager, Economic Impact at Facebook. Jason Wood, Chief Information Officer at Evergreen Health. And to represent our small businesses, we have Denise Brown, Director of Finance and HR at Molly Moon's Homemade Ice Cream. Now, Christina and Margot, when we are in person, I vote for Molly Moon's as our dessert. That's my request. What was that?
Me too.
Okay, excellent. Our moderator for today will be Emily Parkhurst from the Puget Sound Business Journal. So Emily, take it away.
Thank you so much, Renee. Really appreciate it. And I share your love of Molly Moon's ice cream. So I feel like that's what we should all do after this event today. Let's go get some ice cream. No, I'm really excited to have this discussion today. And Chris, really appreciate your presentation. A lot of really interesting data in there this morning, and some stuff that we'll dive into in the discussion this morning. So I just want to kick things off briefly. We're going to spend the bulk of the discussion talking about the future and what we can expect in the coming years. But I want to start out by just checking in with everybody. How are your respective businesses doing right now? What are your most immediate concerns, and how is the year shaping up for you? And I guess we will start with Jason, because I don't think any industry was more disrupted than healthcare over the past year. So Jason, give us a sense of where you're at.
That's right. Yeah, definitely went through a disruptive and transformative year last year. We're doing well. We're remaining nimble. As you can imagine, having gone through 2020, we've really built those muscles around learning how to flex and make sure that we can deliver the care in the right geographies and the right levels, or the right service lines to our patient populations. So the beginning of the year, we've seen these continued fluctuations. So as I said, we're doing well, but we're actively managing those fluctuations to make sure that we're providing that care, we're remaining viable across the board. As far as some of the early challenges that we're seeing, definitely around, when you think of healthcare, we have pretty significant investments to make. When you think about building the care of the future, whether it's surgery pavilions, maybe an ambulatory surgery center in a geography, or just expanding the service line where we're hiring top-notch clinicians to come in and build out a program. When your demand that you're looking at, or your volumes, looks more like an EKG rather than this gradual line, it really starts to heighten the need to understand what is the trend line in that graph. How can we forecast out just 2 months from now, 3 months from now, and then 3 to 5 years from now to make sure that we are nimble during the short term, but also are there for our patient populations years from now, and that we built the healthcare system of the future and for the East Side.
Fantastic. Well, really appreciate that that way to kick us off. You know, Denise, I want to go to you because we've heard a lot about small businesses and how they were impacted. How's Molly Moons doing right now?
Actually, I'm astonished to find that we are on a slow and gradual return to more normal business. I couldn't have imagined a year ago that we would be in a position where in May we hired 50 new people to help us through our summer business. You know, a year ago we had lost 97% of our income and had laid off all but 11 employees, and really didn't know when we were going to be able to reopen for business and what we were going to do. And so our company pivoted at that point towards more of a wholesale program to supplement our retail business. And as we've gradually reopened, we've really seen that the demand for our product is really strong. We're in a position where we still have limitations and restrictions on the number of people we can have in our shops. And so that has a real impact getting back to a full return to normal. But we were able to maintain all of our staffing. We kept everyone on shared work through the pandemic. And when we reopened, we were able to bring back our full staff with the exception of one person who didn't return. And so with the addition of these 50 new people, we're really excited to see what a summer of mostly vaccinated folks and great weather can look like for our business.
That great weather does make a difference for sure. I think in everybody's mental health as well. Well, thanks for that update, Denise. Jane, obviously Microsoft had a busy year. I don't know how many Teams calls I've done this year, but it's a lot. It's a lot. So give us an update on how Microsoft's doing.
Well, thank you, and thanks for this great day. It's been a really interesting session. You know, Chris already covered, like our business is doing well, and it's in a weird way, as my job is in Microsoft Philanthropies, and I work so much with community, and it's, you know, it's a weird thing to say sometimes. It's like our business is actually doing great, and with that comes great responsibility, I think. So I'll talk a little bit more just about where the company and sort of what I'm experiencing, just sort of from a workforce perspective. You know, it's been a sprint. And initially this work was a sprint. It was getting our technology up and ready and better. It was a sprint to respond to our communities and our customers. That sprint, you run out of energy when you're in a sprint, and then you sort of, you know, it's the metaphor, then you move into marathon mode and you sort of got to pace yourself. Now there's sort of this next phase of, okay, the marathon felt like a sprint and now it's like an ultra marathon. And so I think right now there's a lot of focus in the company about well-being and, you know, how do we maintain the health and vibrancy of our employees and their families. I think that's a big focus right now. As you all know, you know, we're a global company. We've got a lot of focus right now on India. We have a lot of friends and family and employees that are in India. So that's sort of a big focus for us, and creating a toll, really. And so, you know, honestly, that's from a people perspective, that's what's going on. And it's been a really interesting time to be at Microsoft. I've been here for, gosh, almost 28 years now, and to see the company so focused on mental health and well-being is just pretty incredible for this company. You know, just a couple other things I would say. You know, we're starting to come back. We had our soft opening, I think, a couple of weeks ago. We're now starting to see about 6,000 people coming onto campus each day. About 3,700 of those are FTEs. A lot of the people that are coming back are the people who are caring for the campus and that sort of thing, construction, all of that. But we are starting to see people come back. And I think our focus now is let's rest, let's take care of ourselves these next couple of months, and then we're going to come back in the fall and we're going to be ready to go. That's our focus.
Rest, huh? Does anybody know what that means anymore? Taking a break. I feel like we're all on all the time now. For sure. Well, thanks for that, Jane. And there's a couple of things I want to return to that you mentioned. But before we do, I'd love to hear from you, Diana, on how things are going with you and your team at Facebook.
Yes, first, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be on a panel with such amazing representation here. I would say that, Facebook at its core is a connecting platform, and that has never been more important than during this pandemic. We've always wanted to bring communities together. We've always wanted to be able to provide a resource for folks to connect. But in this era of social distancing, especially at the beginning, one of our biggest focus was how are we going to help people stay in touch? How are we going to allow for people to live as close to their normal activities and daily lives and communities as they possibly could? And so from the very beginning, we launched a COVID resource hub and really looked to utilize a lot of our platforms, to make sure that people were communicating and getting together. So we had a faith hub that allowed for individuals of all denominations to find people to co-worship together. You saw that individuals were using our affinity groups, to connect with their running class or their fisherman's group, and really trying to figure out how they were going to stay connected in their interests, and everyone to make sure that they didn't feel alone. Right. And so that was the biggest piece of utilizing this platform that we built to really bring communities together. I will also say that from the beginning of the pandemic, small businesses, everyone here knew that they were going to take a hit. I don't know that anyone would have predicted as dramatic as a shift as we have seen. I feel incredibly fortunate to be on the team that helps support small businesses. And so, I've now been here for 1.5 years, but I was only in the office for about 4 months before we shut down. And so, while small business support has always been a priority for the company, for over 10 years, we've been hosting free educational trainings and products and things like that. But we knew from the minute this happened that we knew we had to act. So we've created a business resource hub, free educational trainings. We've doubled down on meeting people where they are in terms of skill and comfort level in using our platforms. Again, going to that place of, we want to help people feel connected. And so they need to know how to best use the platforms to be able to do that. But then for small businesses, as we've all seen, there's been a transition from offline to online at a pretty rapid rate. And so how do we make sure that people are not only surviving the pandemic and making their change in operations as easy as possible, but how do they potentially thrive? And so we've doubled down on new products, on support initiatives, on free educational trainings. And that continues to be a major focus for us as we continue to navigate ourselves through this next phase.
And that's great, Diana. And thank you to Facebook for all your support of the small businesses in our community. It's great to see. And there's been a lot of that today from some of our big employers, which is just really fantastic to see. I think we heard from Chris that the East Side is really poised for incredible growth coming out of the pandemic here, and is already experiencing it, frankly. But with that kind of growth comes real challenges, namely infrastructure and some other challenges. So what do you think is most vital to facilitate the continued growth in the immediate and in the long term? And I'll start with you, Jane, because I know you spend a lot of time thinking about this, particularly with that affordable housing lens. Can you talk a little bit about what Microsoft is seeing there?
Well, I was going to say housing. The growth is incredible that is happening in this region. And I think the thing that keeps me up at night is the fact that we've got a small window of time to really take advantage of the growth that is happening across all these cities on the East Side, and really think about the vision. What do we want this community to be like in 10 and 15 and 20 years? What's the feeling you want to have here? What are the experiences, the anemone? How do we want to take care of our families in this region? And I think if we don't think about that immediately and develop a plan that works across the cities and across the regions, we're really going to regret it. And, we'll just take housing as an example. The fact is that people like teachers and firefighters and nurses and a lot of people coming up in their careers really can't afford to live in this area. And that's getting worse before it's getting better, despite all the investment that's happening that, Microsoft, we've already deployed or committed about 500 million of our commitment that will go towards creation and preservation of about 8,500 more low and middle income units. Amazon is coming on, which is fantastic. We need that so much. So great that they're doing that. And, but the fact of the matter is that the pace, we can't keep up. And so that means that these cities have got to come together rapidly, dramatically, to come up with ways that they're going to address, stubborn policy issues across cities. We've got to act like a growing, a big urban city. That's what this region has become. We've got to address density. We've got to address transportation. All of those things have to be thought through. And it's tough. There's still a lot of small community mindset that is important, right? That's the heart and soul of the East Side. So we need to maintain that, but somehow add in levers that we can pull that are actually going to help us get to this vision that we want to have, where it's bigger, where we have economic diversity across the region, where it's inclusive, where we can run into our teachers in the grocery store, we can run into the firefighters, hopefully not like fighting a fire, but running into the firefighters at the grocery store. That's what we need to have. And that's what's keeping me up. And that's what we'll be focused on the next couple of years for sure.
Well, thank you for that. Diana, I want to throw it to you because I'm so interested. Facebook is growing rapidly on the East Side. What are your concerns as you grow the offices, I guess I should say plural, what are you watching most closely and what does Facebook need to facilitate continued growth on the East Side?
Well, we're really excited about the dynamic environment on the East Side. It's a central location. The opportunities as a transit hub are just so incredibly exciting that that we're honored to be there and be a part of the community. We truly believe in immersing ourselves in the community and really kind of being representative of who is there and what is there, and really kind of embedding ourselves that way as opposed to bringing in something else and making everybody else adhere to a specific culture. We're really excited. We've chosen the East Side because of the culture and the people that are there. I think it goes back to our investments in terms of small business. When you bring opportunities, when you bring employees, when you bring a larger office, there's an entire ecosystem that's supported around that, and that's something that we're hoping to continue to help support and help build upon. We're excited to see the opportunities that are there to support the local small business community, to see that growth and that investment. And we through organizations like this and through our partnerships and our own initiatives, we're going to continue to provide as much support as we can. At the start of the pandemic, we launched a small business grants program and actually had awarded about $8.5 million dollars in ad credits to the greater Seattle area, to support the small business community, because we know of that authentic investment and that authenticity that the community brings. And so that's a key focus for us, to again just be a part of the community and support what's there.
No, that's great. Appreciate that answer. Denise, you and your team have facilities all across the region, and you're looking to grow. So what do you need to basically get back to pre-pandemic levels and then continue to grow from there? What do you need most from leaders on the East Side to support you?
I think one of the things that's really important to echo what Jane said is affordable housing on the East Side. For us, one of the big struggles is employees who work in the service industry are at an even lower income level than a lot of the people who are at Microsoft or Facebook. And so finding people who are close to our shops and in the neighborhoods where they work is really important for us. We typically try our best to build teams from people who are in the neighborhoods where we serve. And that has been a struggle for us on the East Side. And I think I would say, in addition to that, having a more robust public transportation system that really connects all locations on the East Side and helps easily bring people in from more affordable areas to the Bellevues and the Redmonds where we have our shops would make a huge difference for us. Right now, we started our hiring campaign on the East Side and on the Seattle side simultaneously. We easily filled all of our roles in Seattle. And the only thing we have left open are these East Side jobs because it really is just a challenge to find people near the shops to work in them. I think one thing that I would love to see from the East Side is a more robust sort of an employment center or some place where we can post jobs or we can actively recruit from the communities on the East Side, where we can recruit for diverse candidates and we can create a real partnership. I think even with the larger organizations, I think with other companies who are seasonal businesses in a different way than our company is. One of the challenges for us is we really hire up in the summer and then we slow everybody down out of the business starting in October. That's about when retail businesses typically ramp up for the holiday season. So being in a place where we can make a partnership or find a partnership to help our employees who transition out of our business transition to other roles would be incredibly helpful for us.
Well, that was a very actionable piece of insight, Denise. Thank you for that. I mean, that's a real world solution that you're seeking there. Really appreciate your sharing that. Jason, obviously, as the East Side grows, you know, the hospital systems and clinics need to grow along with that. How are you poised for that growth? How are you poised to support the growing population on the East Side? And what do you need to facilitate that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely with the growing populations, it's important that we expand the system and that we have clinics in the neighborhoods and not just clinics, but the right kind of care. So we're very intentional about understanding where are the needs, the demands going to be. So do we need nephrology or oncology additional in one region versus another? So very critical to us. Definitely thinking about not just expanding the services, but making sure that we have services across the board, across economic spectrums. So I'm proud that Evergreen Health has always been committed to serving all patient populations. So we take Medicaid or Apple Care, and we're committed to providing that same great care across the region, whether you happen to be on Medicaid or maybe you're on one of these Cadillac programs that you might have heard about. We want to provide that same great care across the region. And so you've got to grow, you've got to adjust and be nimble to where your care is delivered to really support the population throughout the region. And you've got to think different about it. So if we think of healthcare, maybe 10 years ago, the growth meant you put buildings in places and you hired physicians, nurses, APPs, and you built out. Well, there is a primary care provider shortage across the country, and we know that we can't simply just purely hire our way out of the demand curve that's coming. So we have to be very diligent and thoughtful about how we not only build where appropriate the facilities, but build out the technologies, the remote patient monitoring solutions, like the care teams that can support these growing populations and really improve the healthcare outcomes of the populations here on the East Side of the serve.
Well, it sounds like, Jason, you're also talking about workforce development, right? If you're having a shortage of folks who are able to come support your growth, that's a piece of it. Am I right about that?
Oh, absolutely. So as we move into population health, so we have the traditional shortages, which are medical assistants. So Denise talked about the folks at different pay ranges within the organizations, and medical assistants definitely are at a different range than a physician. So you really need to focus on that. But you also have to grow these non-clinical team functions to support population health. And what population health looks like is you clearly have the care team, but you've got folks doing analytics, writing software, providing that holistic picture of the patient and the population, so that care team can truly provide health care, not sick care. And that's what we're very focused
on. No, that's great. Jane, I know workforce development is near and dear to your heart. So I wanted to bring this up in part because Jason mentioned it and Denise has mentioned it. This is something that the region's going to have to deal with. What role do you think Microsoft plays in that?
Great question. And Jason, a great, actually, all of you, and it's really interesting. We all struggle with workforce and hiring and retaining great employees. And it just, when we've got such incredible jobs here in this region. So it's always an interesting dilemma. I think there's a couple things that I'm excited about in terms of the workforce development. And I think it's interesting because it's relevant to all the industries. And this notion of how do we flip our systems a little bit to get to a place where we're doing more skills-based hiring and we're creating more opportunities in our workforces to create work-based learning so that people, young people primarily, can get a window into what this work actually is and give them opportunities to do some of that real world work. We know in the education system that is probably the best way to do workforce development, is you combine the academic and the practical at the same time while paying people during that learning. And it's been really interesting to see the state invest in the infrastructure that enables that, whether it's through Career Connect Washington, the apprenticeship work that's happening. So I'm really excited about that. There's a bunch of work that needs to happen on the policy side to enable that to work better. But then there's also, great responsibility on employers. And I think especially for the large employers like us, play an important role. One of the things we're really trying to do is use the power of LinkedIn to do a lot of predictive analysis about what is happening in terms of placement, who's going where, what are people interested in, what kinds of resumes are working, all of those different things, and really trying to mine that information and then present it both to other employers and to the workforce system to create improvements that will help close some of the stubborn gaps that we have. One of the things I'm really excited about, it was just announced, is something called Career Connector. I think that's the name. And it's a Microsoft program that's really focused on closing that last mile. And it's working with, we've already have this global skills initiative going where we found, using LinkedIn data, really targeted a number of different career pathways that have high growth potential, high wage potential, and packaged up the materials, the certifications, all of that kind of work, working with nonprofits to help deliver the training. But then having this tool called Career Connector that signs up local businesses so that they can actually get access and first view on those people coming out of those programs. So we're really excited about this kind of work. But yeah, I guess that's what I would say about that. And it's another opportunity, I think, for the greater East Side to come together. I think in a lot of ways, what happens in these in these big state initiatives and so forth, they sort of focus on Seattle or they focus on big areas. And this is an opportunity for the small cities, actually some not so small, but the smaller cities on the east side to bound together and actually be bigger than other areas in the state. And I think approaching some of those new programs that are coming from the state level and from other companies as a region could be a really great opportunity.
Well, that sort of connects with what Chris was saying about the East Side communities being more diverse even than, than Seattle. And so there's an equity lens to what you were talking about, Jane, that's really important there.
Absolutely. Yep.
Diana, I know, we've heard over and over and over again that, the reason the great companies like Facebook are moving to the Puget Sound region is for the talent. So how do you see the workforce development piece and continuing to feed Facebook's need for additional employees?
Well, I think, I echo everything that everyone has said about the importance of building out the ecosystem, the importance of investing in skills training, and also support, right? I'll get to that question, but we also have to make sure when we're talking about the entire ecosystem that that people have the skills that they need in the industries where they want to work. We have to make sure that they actually have access to the internet. And closing that digital divide, as we're talking, that has been so exacerbated by the pandemic. And then again, we have to meet people where they are. And so, I go back to, especially in some of the small business work that we've done, I go back to how are we also preparing job seekers to fill the needs of the small businesses that that can use that extra help because they have transitioned online. So how are we supporting folks with digital skills training? We have a partnership with Coursera to help address that exact need, and we have multiple free digital skills curriculum that you can find online in our business resource hub. And then you're also looking at just statistically across the Washington state region, because of the pandemic, 23% of small businesses reported that they had to reduce their workforce due to the pandemic. And that's from a recent report that we actually launched called the State of Small Business that came out last month. But so it's looking at the skills that individual job seekers need. It's looking at the industries that are having a really hard time finding either the talent or finding those who are going to help transition their business. But of course, we're also seeing in the restaurant industry, they're having a really hard time finding workers. So it's how do we overall support the ecosystem? And then when it comes to workforce, I think again, especially on the East Side, it goes back to us wanting to be a part of the community and not just impart our Facebook culture, which I happen to think is quite lovely, and I'm very lucky to be here. But I think what makes the Facebook culture so wonderful to work for is because it is representative of where we live and where we are. And so it's the individuality, it's the diversity and inclusion that you all just spoke about that's so vibrant in the East Side that we're looking to bring into our offices, even more so than to our, outside of our commitments, it's just who we are as a company. And so that's what's super exciting about, this location, bringing together folks from the neighboring communities as well. It's that individuality that brings up this and personality that brings up the whole.
Absolutely. It sort of begs the question, Denise, you were talking earlier about the challenges in staffing for your East Side facilities. And, we've been talking about workforce development, but that's also a transportation issue and some other issues there. But your employees are potentially future Facebook employees. These are younger people who are maybe still in school. So how do you see opportunities for the big companies, the big employers like the Facebooks and Microsofts of the East Side? How can they support the small businesses like Molly Moons?
One of the things that I think has been great in terms of partnerships with larger businesses is when they basically use some of their sort of funds that they have to provide perks to their employees by giving gift cards or giving discounts or something to these smaller businesses to encourage their employees to really engage in actively supporting those small businesses that are in the community and making a really great connection between smaller businesses and larger organizations. And we've in the past sort of done a reciprocity sort of a program where Microsoft has given employees gift cards to have them come and visit our shops. And then we've done like pop-up ice cream socials as a sort of thank you to employees at the larger organization. So it's sort of it's a plus for the employees, and it's just a really great way to continue to build that connection. I think it gives our employees, not only who work in the shops, but the ones who show up to do those sort of events, an opportunity to make a connection with the bigger employers and see what that workplace is like, and kind of have some exposure to the potential employers that are available to them as they move forward in their careers.
Oh, that's great. I love that. That's a real connection to the community too, Denise. That's fantastic. Well, we only have a few minutes left before I have to turn this over to our wonderful hosts today. But I kind of want to do a rapid fire with all four of you to close us out today. What are you most excited about when you look forward for the East Side community, and when you look into the post-pandemic, when we're done talking about the pandemic and we're moving on, what excites you most about the future of the East Side? Jason, I'll start with you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, and I think we're getting there quickly. So one of the things, we've had a partnership with Microsoft and Overlake and some other groups to stand up a vaccine center on the Microsoft campus. So over 100,000 vaccines given. So when I see those numbers rolling in every day, I couldn't be more excited about what you just asked. So if we can get the vaccine out there, what's next? And I'm very excited about not getting back to normal. So what I mean by that is we will have not taken the silver lining out of this pandemic in healthcare if we simply just say, great, we're open, we're going to go back to healthcare the way it was run 40 years in the country, 40 years ago. I'm excited to continue to build upon the progress in digital health in 2020 and early in 2021, and really just expand that out and deliver new and innovative care models that have a heavy technology bent.
Fantastic. What about you, Diana? What are you most excited about?
We're really excited about opening up our Spring District office. We're chomping at the bit. We're very excited about that. Again, using it as a community hub, really to just anchor in, and also, of course, the opportunities for lots of transportation, and just really just making it as accessible as possible. And then I think we're going to have some really cool partnerships to announce in the coming months. So stay tuned on that. But we're very, very excited to get that open.
Fantastic. Well, that facility over there is just gorgeous. Yeah, it's really exciting to have Facebook over there. What about you, Denise?
What we're excited about is basically the opportunity to make Molly Moons as much a part of the East Side communities as we are a part of the Seattle neighborhoods that we're in, and really build our locations as a multi-generational gathering place where people can come, people can experience some joy from ice cream, and we can really be a heart of those communities. And a part of that is building connections with nonprofits in those neighborhoods as well, so we can really continue to support the values-based initiatives that we have supported in Seattle and grow that over on the East Side in a really meaningful way.
Fantastic. All right, Jane, that gives you the last word.
I know, and I get a cheat because, for one, Jason took my first one with the vaccine, and the partnership with Evergreen has been incredible. And wow, our healthcare providers, awesome. But okay, so I'm going to go fast. Okay, first, I do have to give a shout out to your leaders in Bellevue and Kirkland and Redmond who have actually started to really take on the affordable housing work and done some meaningful policy work with us, done some really interesting work on financial models. So that is something that is exciting. Keep the pressure on them though. Okay, so there's that. The second thing, I'm super excited about light rail opening sometime soon. I am excited about this little initiative called East Hub. I don't know if you have all heard about it, but it's this sort of arts and cultural community engagement sort of thing that's happening around the East Side to really think about high quality, inclusive, equitable arts and culture on the East Side. And then lastly, our campus, our big, huge 3 million square foot massive thing that's being built down the block. And it is going to be so cool. I cannot wait, but we have to wait till 2023. So
we can't wait to see what you build there and get a tour too.
You are all invited. When it opens, you are all invited. Molly Moons for everybody. It's gonna be awesome.
All right, we're gonna
if you're vaccinated.
We are gonna hold you to that, Jane.
Okay.
Everybody. Well, fantastic. It was so great to hear from all of you today. Jane, Denise, Diana, Jason, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We really appreciate it. And it was great to connect with all of you today.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Emily, and to our entire panel for your insight, your inspiration, and dedication to our community. I would love to do a couple of call to actions here. I'd love for you to show your support to our community by using Charity's Eastside Resilient campaign. Support small businesses and nonprofits. Shop small, shop local, and shop often. I'd like to ask you to share the news about the OneEastside SPARK and our resources far and wide so businesses who need help can find it. And for those of you who want to join Amazon by donating to the Eastside Small Business Recovery Fund, we welcome every dollar as it helps to continue to amplify the support that we're giving to our small businesses and nonprofits. So as I close the program today, I want to give another big thank you to all our speakers today, and thanks to our sponsors. Our presenting sponsors, Amazon, Puget Sound Energy. Our supporting sponsors, Business Health Trust, and Clark Newber. And our media sponsor, Puget Sound Business Journal. And I would like to thank the team at Tenacious Ventures for another outstanding production here today. And last but certainly not least, I would like to thank all of our 23 cities and towns, our East King Chambers of Commerce, our downtown associations, our partners, for all your hard work in helping our small business community. We are thrilled by this overwhelming response from the Eastside community, and we look forward to seeing you again at our upcoming events. Thank you.